Hello, welcome to FundForum Asia 2017, coming to you from the JW Marriott Hotel in Hong Kong. I'm Sarah Clarke. Now today we're talking to Naomi Denning, Managing Director of Investment Services Asia Pacific at Willis Towers Watson. Thank you very much for joining us, Naomi.
Pleasure.
Now I'm keen to talk to you today about collaboration in the industry and what the industry needs to do to deliver to clients. Let's start with the issue. Is the industry not delivering what the client wants?
I think that's an interesting question. I might even change the question or split it into two. Is the industry delivering what the client needs? And is what the client wants what the client actually needs? And I think those are important distinctions. Is the industry delivering what the client needs? To some extent, but I think we all need to acknowledge that the client goals are important, but they aren't always aligned with the goals of the providers in the industry. Let's face it, everyone is under profit pressure as well as the pressure to deliver to their clients, and those two aren't always necessarily aligned. So sometimes that can get in the way of delivering the client goals. But the issue of wants and needs, there can be a gap there. Sometimes what the client thinks they want may not be what they actually need. And an example I was giving earlier in the conference, sometimes clients want daily liquidity of their assets or the ability to liquidate their assets very quickly, and they're actually a long-term investor. So one of their competitive advantages in the investment field is that they can invest for the long term and therefore take advantage of a long-term illiquidity premium, but they don't do that, or they think they don't want it. But so closing that gap and making sure that clients are comfortable that what they want is really what they need, I think is an important issue.
When delivering those goals, from the industry's perspective, have asset managers become more dependent on market appreciation rather than kind of delivering the likes or attracting investor money?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the industry as a whole is growing to acknowledge that investment returns, market appreciation returns, and aren't what they were, and so relying on that actually is not good. I think horizons have lowered in terms of what to expect, and so that brings into question: are you getting, or it's much more evident whether the alpha is being delivered or the skill is coming through, as to whether they can top up those market returns. And so it's really brought into question: are funds paying the right amount for what they're getting? And so I think that's probably one of the bigger issues.
We discussed cost pressures, on the industry, but is it a matter of the active managers that they're failing to justify fees?
I think,
is that a problem?
Well, I think one of the issues with the active management industry, as you know, the size of asset managers has grown exponentially in the past couple of decades, and when they develop a new approach, a new process to try and capture alpha that other people aren't accessing, if they become attractive, everyone wants to buy that, but then the manager gets too big or the process gets copied and it gets competed away. And so it does become harder for the managers to keep delivering the alpha to justify the fee. So then, for the end investor, it becomes a trade-off between: do you go big and brand and get the fees down, frankly, maybe even passive and have low fees, and pursue the smaller managers who, with the ability to implement high active bets in the portfolio and truly deliver sustainable alpha over time.
Okay, you talked about a kind of crowded marketplace. Moving on to the question of collaboration, which was the second part of the discussion point. How can collaboration help?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it is important. I think the industry as a whole, I think, needs to recognise that the goal of the industry needs to focus on the goals of the end saver, and frankly that's very important to our organisation and its mission. And we do think that collaboration is essential for that, because you've got different parties in the industry, and many of their roles are starting to overlap. We recognise, we overlap with asset managers, with developing, multi-asset fund-of-fund structures. The asset owners are overlapping with the asset managers. They're developing internal teams, managing some of the money. The asset consultants are overlapping with the clients as well. So recognising the different competitive advantages that we all bring, but then working together. And a good example, we've been doing work to collaborate with asset managers where we've got the context from the client, we see problems in the industry, and then try to work with the asset managers, who ultimately they're the better parties at picking the stocks, and trying to build a better solution that actually removes some of the inherent problems in the industry. So, using global equities as an example, you see a lot of structures where the asset owner has put in place a number of managers. They're holding lots and lots of stocks. Many of the stocks are just sort of index risk control stocks. Only a very small portion of the portfolio is really active bets, and that dilutes the performance. That usually they end up with index sort of minus a little bit, and they're not really achieving the goals that they're paying for through the active management fees. But a lot of that's happening because the managers are measured quarterly, and they're worried about underperforming on a short-term basis. So they're nervous of stripping out that risk control and simply providing their best bets. So we've worked with managers to actually identify those managers who've got really good stock picking skills, and only take that from them, just those concentrated bets, but then combine a number of different managers together into a portfolio. So you've got pure bets in the portfolio. Put a little bit of risk control around that, just to make sure it's not too uncomfortable for the end investor, and do that, and with very competitive fees in there. So I think that's a good example of how collaboration is leading to a better end result for the investor.
And if the industry doesn't go down that path, like the collaboration being seen as a client solution and identifying some of the other areas or gaps in what they're offering to the client, do those, the average managers, or do those firms that don't recognise that, do they have a short lifespan looking down the track, given it's a shifting landscape?
Yeah, well, I guess the answer is potentially some of them do. I think it's important to recognise the trends that are going on, and if asset owners recognise their strengths and weaknesses, and they recognise the problems in the industry, they will move away from those managers. If they recognise that it's tough to find alpha in the active space, they'll move to passive. So managers who aren't changing their game will lose out, but there will always be investors out there who have self-confidence in their ability to find alpha and may still persist with some of the managers, and we do see that happening.
Naomi Denning, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Sadly, that's all we've got time for, but if you'd like to see more discussions like these, please follow Twitter and go to @FundForum or #FFAsia. Thanks very much for joining us. See you next time.